Welcome to the WW Crew Week 6 Power Rankings. I am your host and lead commissioner Trent. Let's get it started. If I want to show you guys something really quick, I thought this was pretty interesting. Here is the weekly records for all teams. So if you played every team every single week, this is what your record would be. You see Noah has been tearing it up. He's 8-1 in week 1, 9-0 against everybody in week 2, 9-0 against everybody in week 5. So you get the point. It's a very interesting concept. It makes you really think about these things and how your season's been going. Then this other picture right here, this is what your record would be if you had someone else's schedule. For instance, if you look at Dakota, Dak's disappointments. If he had Brendan's schedule, he'd be 5-0. And then if you go down, look at Brian. If he had mine or Brendan's schedule, he would be 5-0 with either one of those schedules. And then you see Andrew's 0-5, 0-5, 0-5, 0-5, 0-5, 0-5, 0-5, 0. Just not much luck. But plenty of time to turn around. Without further ado, let's get into these week 5 bums. Woo! Coming in at number 3 on your week 5 bums, we have Amari Cooper, 5.1 points. Just couldn't get it done for Dakota. I mean, if he had a couple catches, Dakota probably would have walked away with the victory over me. But 4.1 isn't going to get it done in such a tight matchup. I believe it was like 5 points or something. It was a pretty close game between me and him. But yeah, no, Amari Cooper it looked like he wasn't on the field most of the time too. It was really weird seeing that. James Bradbury was covering him when he was on the field. Tough matchup for Amari Cooper this last week. In at number 2 on your week 5 bums list, we have Joe Burrow with 4.32 fantasy points. Just could not get it done against that tough Ravens defense. He had an interception. And then he also lost a fumble. Just things not going his way. And definitely not helping Andrew out at all in this last week. In at the number 1 spot on your week 5 bums is Zach Ertz with 1.6 points. Steelers defense was all over him. It was a tough matchup for him, making Carson Wentz throw to the wide receivers, taking away Carson Wentz's best option. It's just not looking good for Zach Ertz to start the season only 2 times over 10 points in 5 weeks. Ertz is not looking like his usual self, especially with the way Carson Wentz has been playing. I just don't see it happening this season for Zach Ertz. I mean, maybe he gets it going later on in the season, but who knows? But he is your week 1 or your number 1 bum for week 5. Now it is time for your week 5 studs. Coming in at number 3, we have Patrick Mahomes, 29.7 fantasy points. Absolutely carried James to a win over Greg. 340 total yards, 3 total touchdowns. Threw a pick, first pick of the season for Patrick Mahomes. But he still had a pretty solid game even though they lost. And definitely helped James with a week 5 win. Of helping James win this last week, we have the Baltimore Ravens defense. 1 fumble returned for a touchdown. They had 7 sacks, 2 total fumble recoveries, and a pick. They just absolutely tore Joe Burrow apart, as I said in the bums column. Really solid week for the Ravens defense. Coming in your top stud of week 5, we have Adam Thielen with 29.3 points. He had 9 catches for 2 touchdowns and 80 yards. Absolutely tore up the Seahawks. I'm surprised they didn't keep going to him late in that game. Russell Wilson is just a magician when the Seahawks are trailing or just in late game situations. But Adam Thielen helped Noah get his 3rd victory of the season. A much needed victory for Noah. He didn't really want to fall behind in the standings this early in the year. But Adam Thielen, once again, tearing it up and into the studs column. And now, it's time for your week 6 power rankings. Let's get right into it. At number 10, you know who it is. It's Andrew. 0-5 to start the season. Things just can't get any worse for him. Um, Time's running out. 6 teams make the playoffs out of 10, so he does still have a couple of weeks. But I think 3 more losses. I think 8 losses on the season pretty much kicks you out of the playoff contention, and he's gonna have to get some wins here, just to stay alive, because you don't know what other teams are going to go through. You don't wanna be eliminated this early in the season. You gotta win some games, Andrew, and keep your name in playoff contention. We'll see though, because his schedule is not that easy coming up here. He's got Noah, he's got Brian. Um, these next 2 weeks, it's going to be tough for him. We'll see what he can do, and if he can bounce back with a win, keep his season alive. Coming in at the number 9 spot, we have Daniel. He was finally able to get his first win of the season. Now Daniel, he can come back. I mean, he started 2-4 last season before coming back and actually winning the championship. Just went on a magnificent run there in the postseason. But it's a new season. We got Dalvin Cook injured for him. Probably not going to be playing this week. Was not able to secure Madison off of waivers. He also has A.J. Brown coming back and possibly Chris Godwin. So, I mean, those are 2 big-name receivers that he is going to need if he wants to continue this comeback. Melvin Gordon's probably looking at a suspension because he's an idiot. But yeah, no, Jared Goff had a big week last week for him. Joe Mixon had a solid week. Henderson, his team had a pretty solid week to get his first win. Let's see if he can keep it up against James in week 2. In at the number 8 spot, we have Dakota. Another tough loss for him this last week, as he lost by about 5 points. And I know he was really hoping to get to over 500, but he has to keep his head up and keep on moving. He's got Russell Wilson coming up on a bye this week. He's going to be forced to start Big Ben. He's probably hoping Christian McCaffrey doesn't come back this week, so Mike Davis can keep tearing it up like he has been. Mostert's pretty much back and healthy, ready to go. Game script did not fit him this last week. His receivers, they got to get going. A combined 10.9 points between Juju and Amari Cooper this last week isn't going to cut it for Dakota this week. If he wants to avoid falling to 2-4, he's going to need to have his wide receivers produce. Noah Fant probably going to be playing this week. We don't know yet. But yeah, no, Russell Wilson on bye. Dakota's main playmaker and point producer is on bye. We'll see if he can get the dub in week 6. And coming in at the number 7 spot, we have Levi. Just a tough week for Levi this last week. Dak Prescott's pretty much out for the season. It's a good thing he does have Aaron Rodgers, though, but still, that's a big loss. I mean, the number 2 quarterback going into week 5, and he just loses them just like that off of one play. Just not having a good season so far in terms of injuries for Levi. He has Chris Carson on a bye week, which is huge. Chris Carson has been putting up 20 points every game. But, he's probably going to have Julio Jones back this week, depending on what goes on with the Falcons and Minnesota game. It might be delayed to Monday or Tuesday. It seems like every week we have a game going to Monday or Tuesday, but hopefully Julio comes back for him. It'll be a big game for him. He also has George Kittle, Steelers D, Harrison Butker, the same. But that Dak Prescott injury is going to probably plague him for the rest of the season. But we'll see if Aaron Rodgers can keep it up. He's been playing good, and he's coming off of the bye. Zeke is probably going to be eating a lot these next coming weeks until Andy Dalton can get used to that offense and get used to throwing to those wide receivers. In at the number 6 spot, we have Greg, and he's got some wide receivers on bye coming up this week. We got Michael Thomas and DK Metcalf for Greg on bye here in week 6. Michael Thomas was actually supposed to play last week, but decided to be an idiot and punch his teammate. Greg really could have used him this last week, but now he has to wait an extra week just to have Michael Thomas back. Crowder is a nice replacement, though. He should fill in nicely. He's gotten over 20 points in 2 out of the 3 games he's played this season. And Greg looks like he finally dropped Zach Ertz, and he's going to be rolling with T.J. Hawkinson for now. Kenya Drake needs to keep it going. He had a touchdown last week. We'll see what Kenyon Drake can do against the sorry Cowboys run defense, and we'll see if Greg can get his 4th victory of the season here in Week 6. Coming in at the number 5 spot, we have James. James's team is looking real good right now, but he does have a couple of bye weeks to worry about this coming up week. And with Le'Veon Bell currently looking for a new team, let's hope he can not go into the right situation. We don't want James looking scary on us, do we? But no, he's got Tyler Lockett and Keenan Allen on bye, and Keenan Allen actually suffered an injury on Monday, and this bye week should help him out, so Keenan Allen should be good to go next week. But he's got Tyler Boyd and Deebo Samuel taking their roles for this coming up week. And with Le'Veon Bell searching for a new team, he's probably not going to be playing this week. I'd be surprised if he does actually suit up and play for the team that he signs with. We're still waiting as of this video. We do not have any information on where he is going. But Derrick Henry's finally back, and he does look good for James. James is one of the top scorers in the league, actually. I think he is the top scorer in the league. His team is just disgusting. But with these bye weeks, I have him at 5. He's looking real good, though. We'll see if he can get a victory against Daniel and stop Daniel's comeback. In at the number 4 spot, we have Noah. Noah absolutely blew out the number 1 seed in Brian. I feel like there's a little rivalry brewing between him and Brian. Last season they both finished at 10-3 in the regular season. It was pretty much a close. I think Noah won like 7 of his last 8 games or something like that to actually get to 10-3, which is really crazy. They ended up tying records wise, and Brian ended up getting the first round bye over him. So I feel like Noah kind of went into this game like, hey, that was my bye, get smacked, and he just absolutely smacked Brian. Hopkins and Andrews does add some more threats to this team that already had a bunch of threats. The loss of Aaron Jones could hurt him. We haven't seen that yet because Aaron Jones had a bye this last week. But we'll see how Noah's team does these next couple of weeks without Aaron Jones. I mean, last week Noah had all 3 of his receivers had over 20 points. So Matt Ryan's not getting it done, so he's probably rolling with Stafford this week. And we'll see if Miles Sanders and David Johnson can keep it up without Aaron Jones in this lineup. And coming in at the number 3 spot, we have Brian. He had 2 of his wide receivers out on bye last week, which is probably the reason why he lost so badly. But he does have them back, and I believe this is going to be the first time he has Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, and Kenny Golladay all in at the same time. And it's going to be pretty dangerous. We'll have to see how that goes for him. He does have Kamara out on bye this week, which is huge. Even with those 3 receivers, the loss of Kamara this week is probably going to determine his matchup. We'll have to see how that goes. He has a big game against Greg this week. 2 3-2 squads fighting to move up in the standings and in the rankings, I should say. But no, Brian's team's not looking too bad right now. If Kamara wasn't on bye, he'd probably have the highest projection this week. But it's going to be interesting to see these 3 receivers all in the lineup at the same time, and if he can get his 4th win of the season. In at the number 2 spot, we have Brendan. Brendan's got a tough week ahead of him, I feel like. With Josh Jacobs on bye, Nick Chubb injured, he's relying on James Conner and Devin Singletary to carry the load at running back. And if you ask me, I don't think that's very good. But he does not have that good of matchups this week. If Dakota is looking to steal a win against somebody, this is the week to do it. Brendan's team still looking pretty solid at 4-1. Once Nick Chubb come back, we'll say we don't know the timetable for his return. I mean, IRs at least 3 weeks, but it could be 5, it could be 6. He may come back after the week 9 bye. We don't know for Nick Chubb. Um, but Brendan's team's looking pretty solid. If he can overcome the difficult matchups this week, he should be moving to 5-1. It should be a slugfest between him and Dakota this week. Coming in at the number 1 spot in the Week 6 rankings, we have Trent. Lamar Jackson really struggled this last week, and this team has not put up over 130 points since Week 1, where I was the highest scorer. I believe I had like 180 or something like that. But I do have a new player coming into my lineup this week, Aaron Jones. Just traded for him last week, and he was on a bye, so I didn't really get to use him. I do need CMC back. That is killing me. These games are getting too close for me, and eventually it's going to start costing me some if CMC does not come back soon. He should either be back this week or next week. We'll have to see. Half of my bench is pretty much on bye this week, so I'm rolling out some guys. We don't know if the Falcons and Vikings game is going to be played, so hopefully it does for my Calvin Ridley's sake. But we'll have to see. Hanging on to some hope. Hunter Henry's on a bye, so I have to roll with Ebron. But my team isn't that bad. I feel like we're a couple moves away from being a really solid squad, and that includes Christian McCaffrey coming back and getting these buys cleared up, and then I can finally have my roster under control. So we'll see how I can do this week. Now it is time for your Week 6 Game of the Week. Here it is. We got number 5, James, versus number 9, Daniel. Battle between two former college roommates. And here are your key matchups. We have Patrick Mahomes versus Jared Goff. If Jared Goff could keep up with Mahomes this week, Daniel could be in play for his second victory of the season. We also have Derrick Henry versus Joe Mixon. Just an absolute stacked running back battle we have in this one. Between those two, these other guys' running backs aren't that solid. But then the third matchup, we got the Baltimore Ravens defense versus the Indianapolis Colts defense. I was actually cracking up putting this in the key matchups. Just because I only put it in there because we don't know what Daniel's going to do at tight end or wide receiver yet. Rosters aren't fully set, so I decided to have some fun with it this week, and we'll see. My prediction is whichever one of these defenses has the most points is who's going to take home the victory. Don't quote me on that, though. But that is my prediction for this game, and that is your Week 6 Game of the Week. Guys, those are your Week 6 rankings. Hope you guys enjoyed, and as always, keep on grinding.